Hello there and welcome to In My Opinion for Wanted Dead.
You play as Lieutenant Stone, someone who's been locked up for her past and has been picked up to join a special police squad in Hong Kong that takes up the more dangerous assignments, known as zombie units. A time skip later, Stone and her team made up of other misfits get a call to handle a break-in situation, and the story goes on from there. Yeah, it's kinda hard to talk about the story because it seems they were confused on what they wanted to focus on. Like, it starts in one direction, but then it's kind of dropped and instead starts into something else which has to do with Stone's past, which actually caught my interest more, but the game ends before it really gets going. Even with that, I still have fun going through the story because of the likable characters. This feels like a team that's been working with each other for a while. They tell jokes and give each other shit, but it never feels malicious. They can even talk about relationship stuff, like when Stone's talking to Gunsmith while she fixes up Stone's gun. No matter how weird the game could come off as, the characters' bonds feel pretty real. Wanted Dead is a third-person hack and slash with some gunplay thrown in as well, so you'll be slashing and shooting some bullets at oncoming enemies. When it comes to upfront encounters, you have two basic combos you can mix up, and once the enemy is hurt enough and starts to glow, the game gives you the option to perform a finishing strike. Doing this and even attacking with your blade will help you recover some of that red health shown on your health bar. There's also a parry system that is vital. Just block at the right time during a melee attack and a ching will go off, and this will throw off the enemy, letting you put in some damage. Shooting is pretty straightforward, just aim and shoot. You can take cover as well by just being next to a wall. Of course, you can even hip fire, and you have a pistol that allows you to do some pop shots which stuns the enemies for a sec, and even can be done in a melee combo. There's even a pistol counter that has the same effect as a parry, and the game does give you an obvious red visual tell of when you can do it, and since a pistol has infinite ammo, you don't have to worry about not being able to do it. You also have a dash that does come in handy when you're trying to evade attacks or getting closer. The combat does sound straightforward, and it kinda is. Yeah, I know some of the ads thrown around say from some of the team behind Ninja Gaiden, but I feel it's more related to those games in the difficulty area. Besides that, this game is not like Ninja Gaiden. You're not doing a bunch of crazy combos with a Zuna drop to end it. It's all about knowing when to strike, parrying, and pistol countering, and my god is it fun. There is a sense of tension when you're face to face with another melee character, and learning their movements is half the battle, and when you land that parry or pistol counter, it always feels sweet. And what's sweeter is seeing an enemy fall, especially with one of the many finishing strikes. I mean, my god, these are so fluid and brutal, and those who came up with them deserve a round of applause. The challenge is high, because if you make the wrong move, be prepared to be punished, as you can die rather easily in this game. Though I never really felt cheated, as even when you're dealing with multiple melee enemies, they usually take turns to attack, so it's about paying attention. If you do get damaged, you are given 3 stim packs in each mission that do heal you a bit, and there's even a chance an enemy can drop one as well. Little tip, instead of going through the whole heal animation, you could cancel it for faster healing. Just once you see your health start raising up, dash. Also, if Doc is with you, and he is through most of the missions, he revives you once with full health, which is helpful. Though if you die again after that revive, you're staying dead. But that one revive comes back when you continue after death. Also, if you see a purple lighted enemy, try to kill them as soon as possible, as they can keep respawning enemies. The game does not tell you this. Now the gunplay is pretty solid, as you just aim and shoot, and the cover system works well too. I never felt confused on what I could take cover behind, and when you hear auto cover you think the worst, since you assume the game would just keep sticking you to the damn wall and leave you open for an attack. But there was never a moment during the heat of combat that I kept getting stuck to the wall against my will. Like I mentioned, you do have a pistol as well, which you can mix up with your combos, and even stun the enemy, giving you a quick breather. And if you want to, you can whip out your big guns during your face-to-face confrontations. You also eventually get grenades which come in handy, especially against shield enemies. But I will say they ain't perfect, as they fucking suck when you try to throw them when you're taking cover against the wall standing. They always bounce off the wall for me. Basically, if you plan to use a grenade, either do it when you're not taking cover, or when you're taking cover but in a crouching stance. I heard from a few people saying it's utterly pointless to use guns, and that's because everyone is a bullet sponge. Which does leave me scratching my head, as you can see here with me playing on hard, I'm able to headshot these guys and they fall pretty quickly. And even if I don't headshot them, they don't stick around too long. Not to mention the enemy AI, mainly the gun-toting ones, is not that brilliant. The only time the enemies take a crap ton of hits is if you're using guns on melee-focused enemies, rather than on gun-wielding enemies. I've also heard people running out of ammo, but I rarely ran into this, as I felt the enemies drop more than enough bullets for your primary and secondary gun. Yeah, you have 2 guns, your primary, which is your assault rifle that has a customizable parts to become stronger, same with your pistol. Then you have your secondary, which are guns enemies drop, and while not as strong as your primary, some can do the job like the light machine gun. When doing stuff like killing, making it to certain points of the missions, and finding brightly purple lit collectibles, you earn skill points for your skill tree. The skill tree is a big help as it makes you a more efficient ass kicker. There's 3 sections: offense, defense, and utility. These give you skills such as raising defense, increasing the amount of stim packs you start with, increasing your parry window, using grenades, and more. You're also allowed to see every skill in the trees before buying them. I do have some suggestions, such as the skill letting you pull off finishing strikes against one-armed enemies and no-leg enemies. These combined with the skill of quick attacks after a parry or pistol counter makes for a satisfying rhythm and helps you finish off the enemies quicker. One of the first skills you unlock that will also come extremely handy is your bullet time, which you can activate once your adrenaline gauge fills up by attacking. This is a pretty cool skill that slows down time and lets Stone send pistol shots to a couple of enemies and stuns them. And if they're weakened enough by the bullet time, it can also trigger their glowing, letting you pull up multiple finishing strikes at once, and it looks fucking awesome when all this connects. There are checkpoints throughout the missions which fulfill your health, ammo, and stim packs. You can also customize your primary gun and pistol here, and parts for them will be added as you make progress. I've heard some say that there are too few of them in the missions, and I have to disagree, especially when you realize the actual distance from each checkpoint. For example, in the club mission, there is a checkpoint right before a fight section with 2 waves and ends with a big grunt. Then your next checkpoint appears right after. I think it's more that since you can die in a few hits, and you will die a few times until you get in the groove of things, it just feels like the checkpoints are far, since you have to start the wave again. The 5 missions you go through are also not super long, with only the final mission feeling the longest. Also, there's always a checkpoint before the boss battle, which thank God. If the game really wanted to be a dick, it could have made a checkpoint that's right before a wave and boss fight. Speaking of the boss fights, they are fun and fall in the challenging and not cheap area. One of the surprising things in combat is that your teammates are actually helpful. For a second, I thought they were just going to be there for visuals alone, and aside from reviving me would be totally useless. Turns out they're the opposite, since your teammates actually do some damage and have had situations where they actually do kill people. They are also great distractions for the enemy, and since they can't get down, you really never have to worry about them. There are also some skills you can unlock that will make Cortez do fatal attacks here and there, like choking out an enemy to set them up for a finishing strike, and even sometimes breaking their necks instead. During the breaks between missions, you're allowed to explore the police HQ. While here, you can talk to the team and even other NPCs and hear their thoughts or listen in on the conversation about random stuff, which can be entertaining. You even have a jukebox where you can change the music while you're walking around, and there are some good tracks here. There's also a shooting range where Gunsmith will challenge you to beat her record, which nets you a new gun. And there's also a training room where you can redo the tutorial and even do some combat challenges. I actually wish there were more combat challenges to mess with, since these are actually pretty fun, but you only have 5 to do. You can also collect files that are littered around, and new ones usually show up after every mission. If you miss any, they'll still be here at HQ when you come back. Just a heads up, the last time you're in HQ is after the club mission. The game doesn't warn you, so I figured I would. There are other side activities that open up as you progress through the game. You have 2 rhythm games, one being karaoke that has Stone and Gunsmith singing, and if you do well, it leads to some funny reactions from your teammates. The other is Stone and Herzog eating some ramen to music. There's 2 crane games that contain some action figures you can collect and are displayed in the squad room. The crane game on the left also nabs you some music that you can hear in the collectible menu, in-game or out. And some of the tracks can even be used in the Robin rhythm game. I kinda wish some could be used for the karaoke as well, but sadly you're just stuck with 1 song in that department. You can also get tapes here that show what Gunsmith used to do before coming here. The crane game costs you nothing, it becomes rather addicting, also more figures are added as you progress in the story. Last thing to be added is arcade space shooter that is based off a show in the universe, and it's not too bad and has a little intro story. All these side activities also can earn you some skill points, which is a nice bonus. The whole HQ free roaming area gives off a vibe of, and I mean this in the most positive way, a Dreamcast era game. I don't know, maybe it's the regular cop NPC models and voices that do it. After you beat the game, there is a new Game Plus option that lets you replay the game with all the skills and collectibles you've unlocked. Yes, you can miss some of the collectibles since some are in the missions themselves, and no, there's no mission select, so you will have to replay the game again. But you can skip all the cutscenes if you want to. What kinda sucks is the new Game Plus only works for whatever difficulty you beat it in. So if you want to start a hard difficulty, you have to start from scratch. If you want to be able to see all your collectibles whenever you want to, don't worry about having new difficulty wiping them out, as you can still see all you unlocked from the main menu. If you're having trouble with the game and want an easier difficulty, there is one that shows up in 2 ways. One being killed so many times that the game suggests you switch, or a code you can enter in the main menu. After beating all the other difficulties, I can say this one is super easy as you can be pretty reckless. Though heads up, you will have cute cat ears the whole time it's on. The game looks pretty good, and the areas you'll be going through do differ from one another. Such as the first one, which is some corporate building that even has a big relaxing yard inside, and then you have another spot which is a nightclub. You never feel like you're going through the same dull hall in every mission. The main characters' models don't look bad at all, and each has a unique look to them. I especially like Stone's design. The grunts don't look awful either, which is a good thing since you'll be seeing a lot of the same ones. I really wish we got more new enemies to look at as we progress through the game. At least the boss battles at the end of each mission visually stand out. Also, if you notice, this is a violent game, and my god, it's great. It's a real treat watching your blade just dice these body parts off and seeing yourself being covered in blood. There's also 2 different cutscene styles, one using the in-game engine, and another using really good looking anime visuals for when Stone has a flashback. Some say it feels jarring, but it never felt like that to me. Now comes the voice acting, which gets ripped apart by a lot of people, but it's nowhere near the worst voice acting around. Hell, when it comes to recent memory, Gungrave Gore is still the worst. I would rank it as decent, and I would say the higher level will go to Gunsmith. Though my favorite is Stones, as I found the voice rather charming with the accent, and it really does fit the character. So much so I hope they don't replace her actress if we get a sequel. The game does have some tech issues for sure. For example, there's some white flicker that shows up on the side of the screen sometimes for some reason. Also, there are moments when the enemy can get stuck. Thankfully, I didn't have to start over in my situations. I even had at least 2 crashes happen to me. Once in my first playthrough at the first mission checkpoint, and another in my third playthrough, so at least it wasn't common. The game ran smooth like 99% of the time, with some rare instances of frame rate drops. Also, while the camera works just fine for the majority of the game, it can get a little finicky in the final mission in real tight corners.
Bacon, make it 4 slices. No, 5. Definitely 5. A few pancakes on the side, some syrup, banana milkshake, coffee with cream. Please don't put milk in there. Very hard to digest. Some orange juice and a pack of smokes.
Tomato soup and coffee. Make it Irish.
I'll have the special.
Keep the fork, honey. Here's pie.
The game has some chips on its blade, such as some tech issues, but it's still fun as all hell and challenging with a likable cast of characters. It took me about 8 hours to beat the game, and that's because of some deaths and me dicking around in HQ. When it comes to replay value, there's beating the game on harder difficulties, New Game Plus if you miss any collectibles, and if you want, you can mess with the mini game some more. The team did announce some updates will be coming in the form of a roadmap, so who knows, maybe some fixes and additions are on the way. If you're in the mood for a challenging but fair action game, then I highly recommend this one, as it left me wanting more. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.